Okay, welcome. I'm with Janice Abbott, CEO of Atira. Um, Janice, thanks so much for giving us your time and for all the work that you do. You are one of my sheroes. That is absolutely for sure. Do you want to just tell us a little about like who you are and what your location and your orientation of the work?
Sure. So thank you. Shiro, back at you. um, my name is Janice Abbott. I'm of Northern European and Niskanov ancestry by way of my paternal grandmother. Born and raised in the west coast of BC, born in Vancouver, raised in a funny slash awesome little place called Powell River. I've been with Atira for 28 years, 29 years this coming September. And I came to this work mostly through lived experience. My formal education is in something um, maybe complementary. It's journalism, so I don't know, but mostly through lived experience and a passion for the work.
Thanks. Could you tell us a bit about what Atira is and your connection to Atira? Why you been there so
Sure.
long?
Excellent question. So Atira Women's Resource Society is a women's anti-violence organization at its core. We've been around since 1983. I started work at Atira in 1992. We were a tiny little organization there based in South Surrey, White Rock. And I think what fundamentally changed us is some decisions we made early on by about 1993 that we were no longer going to screen um, residential access to women who are struggling with substance use or who are struggling with mental wellness. So, because we were the only women's transition house organization back in the early 90s doing that, all women who were struggling with substance use, struggling with mental wellness, and fleeing violence were kind of directed to us. For me personally, it was just a recognition of the very strong connection between women's experience of violence and their struggles with substance use and mental wellness. So, so it wasn't any kind of sort of academic, well thought out or researched kind of decision. It was just a decision made based on the women that we were seeing in the transition house, based on knowing that women would leave and we'd find empty bottles of alcohol or syringes in their rooms, and we'd lost this opportunity to have honest conversations with women about what they were going through. So it was nothing sort of more than that, than this idea that we needed to be honest about who we were and allow women to be honest about who they were. So that's kind of how we got started in this work.
I'm thinking about a great quote of yours. I hope I get this right. There's nothing wrong with women that's not better explained by responses to
Yeah,
violence, femicide. Do you want to
yeah, sure.
just this
So
idea that talking about women as mentally ill, addicted, and traumatized is not is obscures more than it reveals, and that it's way better to explain it
yeah,
as you do.
I mean, basically, I think what you heard me say ages ago was something like there's nothing wrong with women, that not being raped, assaulted, and murdered, or being afraid of being raped, assaulted, and murdered won't cure. So, and that's not to say that I don't believe that biologically based mental illness exists. Of course it does. What I do believe is until women have enough food to eat, until they have a safe place to live, until they're not afraid for their physical and emotional safety, it's hard, it's impossible to know what's going on for them. And so we need to fix those very basic community needs, women's connections to community, connections to each other, their sense of safety and their sense of belonging in the world. And then maybe we'll understand if something else is going on.
Thanks. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Sister Space, because for me, it's one of the most hopeful responses to the opiate catastrophe anywhere in the world.
Yeah, so Sister Space was something we'd fought for years, like probably a decade, because we were hearing from women in the community that there were times when they were fearful to go to the only safe injection site that was operating at the time. Not because there was anything wrong with the safe injection site for sure, but because they were often standing in line with men who they owed money to, men who had assaulted them, men who had raped them, or sitting beside them inside the space. So the best way I can describe it is women were telling us that they were afraid to go some of the time, depending on what was going on in their lives in the moment. They were afraid to go all of the time for some women. And they wanted a space, I think, that more met with who they were as women, and you know, women for whatever reason tend to be more relational than men. So they wanted to linger longer. They wanted to create connections with each other. So for a variety of reasons, the only safe injection site available wasn't working for them, at least some of the time. So we started Sister Space on a bit of a wing and a prayer in 2017. And when I say a wing and a prayer, there was no guaranteed funding in place. We didn't have as much funding as we thought we needed, so we raised some money. We had a little bit of grant money from Vancouver Coastal Health Authority. We got some support from BC Women's Hospital, in-kind support, and we raised money. And we've continued to do that. We've since gotten some additional grant money from Health Canada, but it's all grant money. And we continue to argue with people in places of funding authority about who's more in need of services. And so, you know, we hear a lot that more men are dying, and so therefore we need to direct what limited resources we have to services for men. So that battle continues to wage. And in the meantime, we have this amazing space that's set up to be way more sort of kitchen table, living room like. We don't limit time that women can spend in the space. So what we're finding, for example, is that women don't use everything at once. They come, they stay a while, they use the dope they have in smaller doses across time, so less chance of being poisoned or overdosing. And women connect to other services in that space, a lot of other services, and to each other. And we've just completed an evaluation, which is on our website. And one of the questions we asked women was, is there anybody here that you can now call a friend, or anybody you see on the street because of Sister Space that you say hi to? And I think that was the most heartwarming thing I read in it, is how many women have made friends or have connected with women at Sister Space, and that connection extends beyond the physical location.
Thanks. And you know, and I've gotten to spend some time with the teams at Sister Space, and it's such a diverse staff team. Like, you've hired the right people for it. Can you say something about, you know, one of the things we know in quote service equity is people want to see themselves reflected in who serves them?
Yeah. So one of the best things we did, we had right when Sister Space started, and this was a complete coincidence, a lucky coincidence for us, but we had a Master's of Social Work student from Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, contact us and want to come over here and do her practicum. And she took on a developmental evaluation of Sister Space when we opened. And then continued by a public health master's level student from UBC. And so we were able to talk to women as we were opening and ask them how they liked what we were doing, what changes we need to make changes sort of as we went. And the one consistent thing that we heard from the women who were utilizing Sister Space, the one thing that mattered to them most was the peer staff. So seeing women they knew from community, seeing women that knew how to use a needle, knew how to use dope, that is what made Sister Space seem so accessible to them, and seeing women that, as you say, that reflected themselves. And that was reiterated in this latest evaluation, which is called a utilization evaluation that we've just completed.
Nice. And I'm just thinking about the diversity of the staff too, in terms of trans women, non-binary women, women who are sex workers, women who are drug users, that the qualification for the work is, you know, the identities of the women that are working in the space are really connected to community and to like living experience and lived experience.
Yeah, yeah. We really worked hard to find peer staff who reflected the women using our services.
Yeah,
And that actually extends across Atira. It's really important, I think. The one way you can, I think, make a program more accessible and feel more authentic to women is ensuring that you're hiring staff who reflect the women accessing your programs and services, for sure.
absolutely. And just one other thing, why are you so committed to keeping Sister Space open? Because I know it's a constant battle, and it's not something that a contract was put out for and you competed for it. You created it as a Tira, and you're the ones who are driving to make sure it stays open. Why is that? What's the intention there? What's the commitment?
Um, because the women want it.
Mm,
For as long as the women who use it are telling us that it's valuable to them, that it's a place that's keeping them connected to community, keeping them connected to each other, keeping them alive, we'll continue to fight to keep it open. Um, I think one of the other really telling things is when this utilization evaluation that we've just completed, we actually had 89 women respond to surveys, which is just unheard of.
unheard of.
We haven't had that kind of response to evaluation surveys we've done before. And I think that says everything. The space matters to women in the community. And for as long as it does, we'll fight to keep it open.
Aw, thanks for that. Thanks for everything you do. Really appreciate you taking time to being with us too.
Thanks, Vicki.
Okay.